Welcome to the second part in the power struggles, professional developments. This time we're going to be covering up to page 59 in the book, and there'll be a few activities included in here as well that we'll end up doing together during the day. I'll just go over them briefly on here so you get a preview of what we will be doing. We talked a little bit about this last time in the relationship building. So this is assuming that you've already done that. You know these kids. So the most important thing to do and the most difficult thing to do is to stay connected to that student, to not take what they're saying personally. It's really hard when students use some of the language that they use, say some of the hurtful things they say, do some of the hurtful things that they do, to not take that personally, to feel that you're responsible for righting some wrong that they have just done. But the problem is, especially for classroom teachers, that connection, the maintaining that connection is of utmost priority. So I like this quote here, all the way back from 1966. He speaks about the importance of adults being able to manage their counter-aggressive impulses towards hostile children. Troubled students are going to make you mad. You're going to get mad at some of these students. That's okay, but controlling those impulses, taking that moment to walk away before you respond is going to make your response more powerful and maintain that connection so that in the future it's more likely to go well and to avoid the power struggle altogether. So this is what we'll be talking about today, are situations where you've been drawn into a power struggle, that you're in it. What do I do now that I'm in it? Whereas before we were talking more about ways to avoid it, to build those relationships. This is more like you're in it. So the second part there says, permit yourself to honestly and privately express the frustration you're feeling. So afterwards, for sure, come into my office, talk to Patsy, talk to people that you trust about what you've experienced. It can be incredibly frustrating to deal with some students when they are openly violating classroom rules, being disrespectful to you or other students. It is very difficult to maintain your sense of calm. But that sense of calm projects control and power in the classroom. It sounds counterintuitive, but if you've been on the other side of the ledger, and I can think back to my own schooling experiences, and whenever I saw a teacher lose it on a student, I was never sitting there thinking like, boy, that person's really in control. I was watching it as sort of a spectacle. So in saying that, thinking about what methods you can do to, what works for you to stay calm, taking a deep breath, walking away, having a squeeze ball, whatever you need to stay calm in that moment. But having that laid out ahead of time, you need that before you get into this moment when you're being challenged. Otherwise, you're not going to go for it, and you're going to end up blowing up. And if you don't know, ask a colleague. Come in. We can talk about things that I've used. There's lots to do when you get frustrated, but you need to have that ahead of time, ready to go. Next, we're going to talk about the hostility cycle. So again, we're in the moment. This is what's happening in the moment. What does it look like? What could we do in that moment to make it better right then and to avoid it in the future? So again, looking at this, student acts impulsively or refuses to cooperate. That engages the back part of our brain. This is the oldest, most primitive part of our brain. A lot of times we call it the fight or flight. So this is just where our emotions start to peak and we start to react rather than thinking logically through the situation, doing what's most effective. Often you feel personally attacked or disrespected, and you say something back to the student, raise the tone or change the tone of your voice. The student will become increasingly hostile. You feel more threatened, and then it keeps going round and round. So we have a couple of thought questions over here. Have you ever had someone you don't really trust try to be nice to you? How did you react? Think of a student with whom you have power struggles. How do you respond? How does the student usually respond? What words can you replace hostility with in the same cycle? So what could you do in that situation to change the dynamic of it? We'll look at a few of those.
I want to demonstrate a power struggle for you real quick. I've been in a few of them in my life on both ends, both the teacher end and the kid end. And I'm actually going to play the role of both, teacher and kid. Thanks. Where does the kid usually start off? Seated, right? Where does the teacher usually start off? Standing, right? And it goes something like this. Now here's the thing, remember this. Power struggles are always about the same thing. It doesn't matter what we're arguing about. It doesn't matter if I dropped a piece of paper, I didn't do my homework, or I called you a name. It's never about that. Power struggles are always about one thing and one thing only. The kid doesn't want to look bad in front of their friends. And the teacher doesn't want to look bad in front of the class. And I can prove this. When's the last time you all had a power struggle with a kid in private? Okay, you might have had one, but I guarantee you have a lot less in private than you do in public. Privacy is such an important part of our system. Anyway, power struggle goes like this. Ready? Kid is usually seated. Teacher's usually standing. By the way, here's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take this to an extreme. Because I believe if you can handle the extreme, you can handle anything inside the extreme. Anyway, tell me if I'm wrong, but does it not go something like this? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Teacher last word is usually what? Out. Yeah. Or out, right. Kid, at least where I work. Whatever. This class sucks anyway. Think I care? Ah, ha, ha, ha. What? What? Why don't you get up and say something? Ugly ass hoes. Bitches. What? Yeah, man, why don't you just shave it off, bro? Because you are losing it. What? You got a problem too? Yeah? What? Say something. Yeah, I didn't think so. Mr. Mandler's an asshole. And if you're lucky, right? If you're lucky, they slam the door open and they leave, right?
So the first one is substitute or reframe. So that word reframe, again, is just to swap out the way you're thinking about it, the things that make it feel personal with something else that's silly or takes the power away from what they're saying. Because ultimately, they probably aren't even doing it because they personally dislike you. Most of the time it's just because they're frustrated with something, or they have a bad home life, or whatever's going on. But it's very rarely specific to the teacher, at least in my experience. So let's take one example. The student uses inappropriate language. Easy one. I do this all the time. Imagine something that wouldn't bother you. Or just take the meaning out of the word. I mean, the words are just sounds that we've assigned meaning to. And if you can think of it like that, when they're using that offensive language towards you, you can remain calm. It's not that, and again, going back to earlier, it's not that there won't be a consequence for that, but often the point of their behavior in that moment is to draw you into a power struggle. And that's what you want to avoid. That's what gives you the sense of power. But you're not ignoring what they're saying. There will be a consequence for that, but ignoring it in the moment allows you to maintain control of the classroom, and not give them the opportunity to make a spectacle of the situation. Now, of course, this is why it's important too to talk to the students as a class before anything like this happens. It goes back to our lessons and setting that out ahead of time, so that when it happens, the students know, hey, I'm not going to respond to every time someone says something that's a little ridiculous or mean or hurtful or offensive. It's not that they won't get in trouble for it, but I want you to know that our priority in here is learning. I'm going to keep you guys learning. I'll deal with that. There will be a consequence. And that can be so much more powerful than just snapping on someone, yelling at them, and stopping everybody's learning because that student wants attention from you. Reframing the situation. So the situation here is the student has a temper tantrum. So the reframe of that is, even though you knocked your chair over, let's look at how you might do a better job next time. So obviously what they did, you're acknowledging that, but you're instead demonstrating an attitude of understanding and looking for a solution. How do we do it better next time? You got frustrated, you knocked your chair off. There can be a consequence of that. Poor choices have those consequences, but what can we do next time to avoid it? I don't want to see you get that frustrated. I see that you're frustrated. Acknowledging that they've had an emotional reaction to something, even if it was irrational, and helping them work through it. A lot of times they're going to need the opportunity, that adult help to work through these things. So again, we've got a little activity that we'll do here with our groups, identifying problem behavior. List 2 positive aspects of the behavior. So pick out an example from your class. List 2 positive aspects of the behavior. Imagine the student is in front of you and try to express these benefits genuinely. So with the person that you're sitting with, try to express that to them genuinely. And I like that word that they use in the book, genuinely, because that's the key. It is tough sometimes to say, hey, you knocked over the chair. I'm glad nobody got hurt. How can you do a better job next time? Right? That's a tough thing to say, because what you want to say is, that was really stupid. You're an idiot. Why'd you knock over the chair? Someone's going to get hurt. Those are the things that you feel and that you might want to say in that moment, but you're going to lose them. They're not going to take that point. It's going to fracture that relationship, and all will be lost. It doesn't matter what kind of consequence they've tuned out. So trying to express genuinely that, hey, I see that you did something wrong. I want you to know that you need to do something different next time. Or showing the class, explaining to them ahead of time, look, I'm not going to respond to every time someone says something inappropriate. There are consequences for saying inappropriate things in my class, and I'll deal with that. And giving yourself that moment too to kind of change that word in your head and take away that meaning and that power, so you don't have that emotional reaction and you're able to keep going in that situation. So here's some of the diffusing strategies for students who are acting out, and we'll see a little video from Dr. Mendler at the end of this slide. So you got PEP, which is privacy, eye contact, proximity. Privacy, real simple. Don't give them that audience. When you yell out their name and explain that they're doing something wrong, some kids thrive on that. They just do. If you don't believe it, find that kid and keep doing it, and you will see that behavior will continue, if not grow more intense and more frequent. If you take that audience away, for some students, especially if the behavior is attention-based, it's going to have more of an impact. Same thing with eye contact, making that connection, making sure that they're listening to you. I know a lot of people do this. I often see our school counselor doing that, asking them to make eye contact with you. It's to make sure they're listening. It's just, so that you can demonstrate that you're calm and respectful towards them, and you expect the same thing out of them. And then the last one, proximity. I think everybody kind of knows this and uses this on some level, but just to reiterate, because it is so important, getting close to them. If you're shouting across the room, it's distracting to everyone else, and it'll limit the impact on that student. Get close, make eye contact, deliver a message quickly and directly, and get out of there.
That you had to correct last year, right? I mean, you had kids that you had to correct. Well, here's the best way that I know of to really correct their behavior. It's, first of all, to cruise around the classroom pretty regularly while you're teaching, which introduces you in a variety of ways to different kids for different reasons. And then there are times that I'll just share a private kind of comment with kids, sometimes about behavior that needs to be corrected, sometimes about behavior that can be appreciated, So I might drop by, like right in the middle of a lesson, and say something like, hey, you know what, you've been doing a great job today, keep up the good work. Anyway, everybody, as we were saying before, you know, you might remember we were talking about the explorers, and hey, you know what, you need to knock that off right this second. Am I clear about that? Thank you very much. Anyway, so as it was, and now of course at first kids are going to be wondering, what did he say, what did he say, what did he say? Which is why you want to have that conversation with the whole class about that. You're not going to be always stopping class to have a conversation with everybody. By the way, what did I say to the two people that I just chatted with? Your name is?
Patrick.
Patrick, loud for everybody to hear pretty much. What did I say to you, Patrick?
I'm doing a great job.
He's doing a great job. Appreciative comment. Your name is?
Frida.
Frida, what did I say to you?
You need to knock that off right now.
Knock it off right now. Yeah, you know, now I don't know that that's exactly what I would say, but when you do PEP, which is an acronym that stands for privacy, eye contact, proximity, you got a better chance of not triggering a power struggle. You know.
These are some additional diffusing strategies. Again, this goes back to what we were just talking about, acknowledging. So if you verbally acknowledge that a fight is about to break out, oftentimes that will set people on their heels, that you're recognizing, again, you're changing the dynamic. Instead of reacting emotionally, you're using your cognitive abilities to point out what's happening. You take that sort of 40,000 foot view of the situation. You say, look, I can see that an argument is about to break out here. It's important to me to maintain control of the classroom and to keep going, and it's important to you to save some dignity. I'm gonna let you off the hook here. We'll talk about it later, and we're gonna get back to teaching. Another one, giving temporary control. This can be a scary one, but I've seen it work. I used it myself. I can still picture the situation in the high school classroom that I did it in. I just said basically this: I can't continue. Why don't you teach for the next few minutes? Anything goes except for class dismissed. And it wasn't exactly that. That's from the book, but that was the gist of it. I don't know what to do right now. I don't know what to do or say to get you back on track. I need a moment to collect myself. You take over. And again, it's just another way of trying to engage that student in thinking rather than in reacting emotionally. When they realize that they've got what they sort of were angling for in trying to be the most powerful person in the room, when they finally get it, they realize that's not what they wanted, and the struggle ends. And that can be a powerful situation. Offering the door but inviting to stay. I like this one again. Kind of, it's acknowledging that you've lost a little bit of control, but it's also maintaining that connection and demonstrating to them that this struggle here is not the most important thing in the room. So you're doing several things at once with this, and I think that it again can get a student on their heels when you put it this way. So you say, I need to stop right now, or I need you to leave. You acknowledge your anger. Even though I'm getting angry, I hope you choose to stay because you're an important member of this class. And again, that goes back to a few slides before. Someone who they might not trust yet, or who in that moment might think is they're really mad at you. When you get that phrase in there, I hope you choose to stay because you're an important member of this class, can really change the dynamic. And then get out of there and get back to teaching. Show them, not just say it to them, but show them, like, look, what's going on between you and I right now is not what's the priority in this class. And if you're going to continue down that pathway, you will have to leave because it's not the most important thing here. Last one here, deciding if a consequence is necessary. So often, we think that after a behavior has happened, there has to be some additional consequence or form of punishment. But a consequence is either positive or negative, and it's just what follows a behavior. The consequence can be that teaching moment in the classroom in the moment. That might be enough. If they responded in a way that was desired, you feel that the moment's over, you can allow them to save some face and let it go at that. Now they might also need an additional consequence, but you need to consider then if that consequence, if they're going to learn from it. So often we think that sitting against the wall or sitting in timeout is going to teach that student something. But if you picture yourself in that situation, what have you learned? What have you learned from it? You know, it's sort of the getting a speeding ticket. You know, if you sit and reflect about your driving, think about, well, it's not very, you know, I'm losing money, and you start to think about like, and it's inefficient. Maybe you slow down. But maybe it doesn't. You don't think about it at all. You're just mad at the police officer because the only interaction that you have is just handing a piece of paper and maybe paying some money. So the consequence often is the meaning for the consequence is put onto you as the individual. And as an adult, oftentimes we can do that, but it's less likely if you're a child, especially if it's just a simple consequence. Again, not that they don't need it sometimes. And sometimes if it's repeated, they will learn from that. They'll be able to teach themselves. But a lot of times the teaching is on, and the learning is on the student to figure it out. Because there's not always additional teaching that goes along with the consequence. And I like this last one. If you decide to give a consequence that's apparent to others, so in front of others, do it in a dignified way. This kind of repeats some of that, what to do with your consequences, right? Dignity, treat students with dignity and preserve dignity for yourself. Model the behaviors you expect. That's the respect aspect of it. Keep those students in class and teach alternatives to aggression. So again, teaching what to do, if possible, with the consequence, include that element to it. If you are, you're saving yourself more corrections in the future. All right, the steps for when the rules are broken. So eight steps. State the rule. Use privacy, eye contact, and proximity to state the rule. So again, you want to restate what the rule is, what you expect them to do. So often we say no running. It's a lot easier to just say we're walking. It changes the tone of it. It tells them what you want them to do. If you say no walking and then they start skipping, then you've got another correction to make, right? Tell them what you want them to do the first time. Ignore the hook, so that can get back to some of our things from earlier in reframing or substituting what you just heard for something else, staying out of that situation. Use the listening and acknowledging. So make sure you hear what they're saying, even if it's something that you don't like, you don't want to hear, don't like to hear. You want to know what it is, because hopefully then you can either acknowledge what they're saying, or you can use that information in the future to try and avoid that situation. Use agreeing and deferring. Again, agree that they do have some power in that situation, or try and defer it to a later time when you can talk about it without the audience. Verbally acknowledging, so that's sort of similar to the acknowledging up here. You're acknowledging that there's a power struggle happening, trying to engage that part of their brain that's thinking rather than using emotion, reacting off emotion. Inviting or offering the door, but inviting to stay, changing that dynamic again. Same thing with giving temporary control. And deciding if a consequence is necessary, the key to that, again, is to remember to keep the dignity, respect, keep them in class if possible, and teach those alternatives to aggression.
Anyway, and then of course the administrator calls me in, and it was always me when I was in school, and I'm going to pick on everyone right now, so that means no one's allowed to get offended since I'm going to pick on everyone. But I'm going to start with administrators, because I'm not really sure if this is why they make a lot more money than teachers, for these two brilliant questions that every single administrator in America asks every single kid who's standing in front of them. The first phenomenal question is, what did you, and what does every kid in the whole world say back? Well, but this is why they make the big money. It's for this amazingly intelligent follow-up question. Well, then why are you? And what does every kid in the whole world say back? I have no idea. I don't know. She's the one who sent me here. You know that, lady. And good administrators, right? You guys are able to get kids to take some responsibility for themselves, you know? So the student might say, well, I guess I called her a bitch, but she is one. She is one. Do you ever see how that lady talks to kids? She is so rude and so nasty and so mean. And my brother had her last year, and he said the same thing about her then. And my mom had that old bag 25 years ago. Can't you guys find anybody younger? And teachers, we're no better. You know why we're no better? Because what do you all expect? You expect the principal's going to wave a magic wand and make the kid better? So where do they almost always end up sending the kid? Back to class, right? And then after promising to be good for, I don't know, the rest of their lives, they come back to class looking something much more like this, do they not? I'm back! Told you I'd be back. What up, dog? What's up, dog? What's up, baby? What's up, girl? Give me a hug. Come here. How you doing? How you doing? What up? 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 Looking happier than ever. Totally disrupting everything. And now teachers, we're no longer mad at the kid. Who are we mad at? That's right. And this is a vicious cycle in school that never ends. Unless we end it. Unless we end it.
We're going to end today with an activity. We'll just preview it here. So write down things that students say or do that trigger anger in you and make you want to fight back. If you don't know, there's some examples in the book of this, but using real examples will make it more powerful. And then you're going to take turns with your partner playing the student and the teacher and use the books. There's specific statements in there for diffusing power struggles, or again, eventually you'll want to come up with your own, because we all got our own tone and voice. And I know this seems a little silly. I can remember doing this, and it seems a little awkward to do it with another adult. But practicing it when it's safe and when you're not in the moment and you don't have that emotional charge makes it more likely that you'll use some of those strategies or phrases when a student does confront you with something that triggers your anger. And remember our goals when you're coming up with these statements and dealing with these situations. Treat students with dignity, preserve dignity for yourself, keep the student in class, and get back to teaching. Become a next to the last word person, and teach an alternative to aggression.